Well, greetings again, everyone. As you see here, I'm holding a couple of tablets. That's because I'm really excited to be bringing out the second message in the series of devotions that I was led to over the relevance of the Ten Commandments in our lives, even into this day and age, for the purpose that we might learn God's will and His ways for our lives. Now, these are just copies that I made years ago when I was making a homemade Moses costume for the sake of a church vacation Bible school. And that was going to be the character that I was playing in the set for what the kids were going to be learning from. This message, however, is going to be over commandment number 1, which we can view in the main text I'm utilizing from Exodus chapter 20, and it will be found in verse 3. However, to best understand the importance of not only it, but indeed all 10 of the commandments, let's first take a look at verses 1 and 2 of that chapter. They say, "And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." These were not just for part of the first commandment, but what it did was establish for all people exactly who these rules, these guidelines were going to be from. The creator, the author of truth, the all powerful, the one who desired the best for us in all situations. And what exactly does our Creator put forth as the very first thing that He expects His beloved creation to choose to want to follow because they are just so completely grateful for Him caring for and blessing them? Well, as the key verse 3 states, "You shall have no other gods before me." Now, theoretically, that should sound pretty straightforward as an expectation. Jehovah God Almighty, who protects, loves, helps, teaches, and provides for us, is to be put first and foremost in our lives, and we should incorporate nothing he does not like as being part of, especially an important part of those lives. Simple, one would think. Unfortunately, very little tends to be simple when humans go to stick their 2 cents into any matter, and our thoughts, as one of the way human thought works, can tend to complicate and overthink things. Well, it does say before. So that as long as we get all of our stuff organized, where we do make sure God, Jesus is at the top of it, then, well, we could dabble with making some other worldly religions things or occult practices or even our hobbies or our things that we just are so beloved to us in our lives that, well, they're not really godly in function or appearance, but it's all about the order, right? So as long as we get it right in order, we're good, right? No, wrong. I do realize that this is likely to step on the toes of many modernistic beliefs when it comes to the faith, but there is no such thing as casual Christianity, where we speak that God is indeed such an important factor in our lives, where uh, we say, oh, well, he's worthy of offering these semi-standardized prayers at meals or at bedtimes. Perhaps maybe make sure that we get those few hours in for the main service on Sunday morning. Maybe even do some like kind of fandom buying of a couple of Christian t-shirts to wear here and there sometimes, or get that fish to slap on the backside of our vehicle. But when it comes down to the wire, when we're lost for sake of knowing what to say in a situation, or we're just afraid of losing some acquaintances or maybe family, or ended up being labeled some kind of weirdo, perhaps avoided by other humans. Ooh, that gets kind of rough. Well, that's one of the greatest weaknesses in the modern church. Far too many of those who claim Christ's name and even possibly have their names on a church roll someplace do not take that relationship. Yes, relationship, not some kind of affectation. The church is not some kind of country club. They begin with the Heavenly Father. That's what the relationship is. We began that. It started between us and God as a relationship. That's a flaw when we don't take it serious, that's more obvious and widespread when you get into the more prosperous and successful countries. There's just got so much stuff around that, well, God starts becoming just one of the many things that are vying for our attention rather than being our judgment standard as to the proper value of all those other things that our attention sees. God is not just some kind of add on to our lives, some kind of title that makes us superior in some way. And it's especially not just some kind of fire insurance policy to keep us out of the flames of hell. He is supposed to be our focus and our reason for life, the judge of our hearts and our thoughts, our sustainer in everything we encounter, the Savior who canceled out the sin debt we couldn't pay, and most importantly, the guide and the strength for us to trust and lean upon each and every minute of every new day that we encounter. Well, yeah, but it did say before. Well, that's one of the downsides of things such as transliteration or semantical drift over the years. Words kind of change meaning. And sometimes when you're trying to translate things from one language to another, like the Latin Bible getting translated into the English for the King James originally, sometimes there's no direct crossover in the words that's available. And they pray, or at least hopefully they did pray, to be able to know to use the correct one. If we look at the older terms, such as the original Hebrew tongue, with the Ten Commandments, Exodus, Deuteronomy, all that, the Hebrew tongue they would have been wrote in, the preposition al, was there before where the before is in the English tongue. It means above, on, about, against, besides, or on the account of. Then you combine all that with the common usages of before when that English term became used in the writings. What era was it? We're talking the Mid Ages, the medieval times. It was the era of nobility, of kings and queens. So when something was brought before the throne, it meant that the item or the person was brought into the sight of or the presence of the ruler. In either case, that means for us to place another God before God in our lives, because, well, we are God's temple if we're believers, is to bring something into the presence or the sight of God. And He can tolerate no evil in His sight. So He's letting us know ahead, don't be bringing that stuff in because I can't deal with that. I don't want it there. But then you go, well, exactly how much of it, how well does God see everything and care about everything? Well, according to scriptures, Proverbs 15:3, it tells us the eyes of the Lord are in some places. No, that's not what it says. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. He sees all of it. God sees everything that we are partaking of in our lives. He sees what the right things we choose to do are, and he sees what the wrong things that we choose to do are. Then here's Jeremiah 32, verse 19. It says, You, talking about God, referring to God as you are great in counsel and mighty in work, for your eyes are open to all the ways of the sons of men, to give everyone according to his ways, his there referring to humans, and according to the fruit of his doings. Again, God sees all things that we choose to get involved in. Everything that we choose to drag into this temple or use this temple to do and work on, everything that we decide to place value on and say, this is important, and he will give what we deserve for what he already knows that we did, whether it was a punishment or restriction for what was wrong, or will reward us for what was right. So, no matter if you are just any old human being in the world, or you're like me and you try to boldly proclaim in both your words and your actions that He is our God, because we have a relationship to Him through His Son Jesus Christ, God's sight is all over what is happening, and our responses and his expectations is what we are going to be to do in any situation in all of that, because we know we are not to drag anything into our lives that we decide to label, whether it's a physical thing, whether it's a trait that we like to follow, that we decide to label as just so important to us that we either spend far too much time on living with or in it than we do ensuring that we are adhering to the godly ways in any situation we find ourselves in, or we're willing to say, look, I don't care what God thinks, I'm not giving that up. Whether it's some kind of situation that we got to make the choices in, whether it's temporary, like you get sick for a little while, or you make a mistake in some way, or there's something that breaks or falls apart on you, to some kind of long haul, commonplace activity that you're going to have to deal with on a day to day basis or every single year, most of it such as going to your job, doing what you got to do at work. Or if you're in that category, you're going to school, your classes, having to be in a public school system, say, or you're just wherever you are, you decide you need to choose things to do. You're going to have to make an action, make a decision, pick something out that we're going to watch, we're going to wear, dress ourselves in all those things, God is to be first. His likes, his dislikes, those are to be considered in all of our choices. And we are never supposed to look upon some kind of worldly action or thing with well, I do know what you say, God, and it's just, I happen to feel that I really, really, really love this thing, or I just need it, God. I can't give it up because I need it. So, well, God, I know what you want, but you're just going to have to accept that I need these one or two things in my life. Hopefully, not more than that. That's kind of how we begin making something else into another god. It becomes equally or more important to us in our life's decisions or how we handle our time and resources than God. And because we're putting them in our life, we're parading those items where? Flaunting them in His temple, which, as our very being, He's not going to be able to tolerate us doing that. So don't expect, as a good father, you're going to hear about it. Well, oh, come on now. You just get real, please. We were talking the word gods. Come on, that's like Odin, Ra, Allah, something like that, man. That other stuff, that's just things that we want, whether it's for enjoyment or we just feel that's important to us, not some actual god like that. Well, I hate to break this news to you, but by historical human facts, that is exactly how most pantheons of gods and goddesses got built by humans for those very reasons. Our nation's sea trade is very important to our city's prosperity. To protect our vessels, we need to call upon the god of the seas to keep our ships safe. Or, oh, wow, these sunny days have been so beautiful. And look at what they've done to the crops. Oh, the sun has provided this. We need to thank to the goddess of the sun for what she's done to our crops. Or, man, we just love an awesome party, especially all the booze you got here. Man, the god of revelry must be smiling upon us. You might laugh at that last one, but try to remember, historically, that's exactly who Dionysus in the Greek or Bacchus in the Romans were, a god of partying, wine, women, booze, party. The fact is that what the first of the 10 commandments meant was that we who are saying that we stand as a representative of God's light in this world are expected to do our absolute best to trust and follow God's ways in and for everything, and to not allow anything that is of this world to become equally or more important to us than our service to Him. And when I say service, I'm not referring to, okay, well, I sat in the pew at the church house last Sunday, or you participated in a church run project, though I do say those are good things to be doing. I'm referring to every step you take, every action that each of us chooses when we are dealing with every human being that we're going to have to interact with in some minor way during the course of most days. In all of that, we are performing services for God as we are truly ambassadors of Christ, even if we don't see it as some kind of service work. Our very attitudes are a service to show Christ to others. Does God still want us to be the example of His will and His love with the way that the world has become today? Answer is a resounding yes. He does still desire us to live righteously to the best of our abilities, putting Him first. And why? Because Jesus is still holding out His hands to the lost with an invitation to come to the Father with their problems, their hurts, their dreams, and their needs so that they can be cleansed and made whole. Of course, that leads to the question of why should the lost consider tossing out all that smelly garbage that's weighing them down in exchange for God's ways if the example we set says something like, well, my God is supposed to be all important as I say, but I more prefer to spend my time and resources with whatever. That is indeed of the influences, the things are of indeed the influences that we know God does not approve of. But, who cares? It's just something small in our lives. See, then the lost, the unbelievers, why would they believe that there was a need to change if what we're saying is, well, here's me and how God changed me, yet the image they see is we acting exactly as they do and accepting what they accept. Or, even worse, that they begin to believe falsely that God says it's now suddenly become acceptable to become a lukewarm Christian. And they live and teach others that as well. So, in closing, as Jesus asked of God the Father for his followers while praying in John 17:15 through 17, I do not pray that you, that's God, should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. See, Jesus knew that we would have to live our daily lives because we're here on earth, but what he expected was that we live them by God's principles, with God's truth, defining our choices and our actions in every single thing. He comes first. Nothing else gets put out there as more important. Not to have anything of the world to be what defines us, where others could honestly look and go, hey, I know that guy or girl, man, they are the serious Deadpool fan. Or, oh man, that's the ones who, man, at the party, they are the best at boozing it up. They get wild and crazy. Or whatever else it is that's not something God would approve in your actions. The whatever, you want that to be filled in as the whatever they know you for is, hey man, that person there, they are someone who loves God before all things. Now, in all likelihood, if it's a worldly person, the odds are it's going to be not come in that manner, but you may see, man, that person over there, they are a real Jesus freak. They are a serious, silly God nut. You know what? You may think that's kind of insulting, but I would take pride in that because you know that what that shows, that says when they think of you, they see God in you. It might convict them and make them feel bad, but they know who is the God who comes first in your life. It ain't anything of the world. It is the Almighty One in heaven that came first. So when it comes to your lives today, and not just today, but always, I just pray that you may rate the Lord before all else in your lives and bring nothing in that becomes so important to you for yourself that in any way is something that is displeasing to Him. Rely on Him to show you what things should and shouldn't be there and to what extent they should be in your life if it's something that's completely neutral. So God bless y'all, and I pray y'all continue to have a great life, great health, and learn to lean on the Lord each and every day.